about something strange next. I'm just going to straight away wade in with death, because it's not something we sort of like to talk about. It doesn't trip off the tongue particularly. Although, I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Because we're all going to face it eventually. It's going to happen to all of us. It's going to happen to everyone we know. But it's still, in our society, quite the taboo. Well, someone who's been attempting to smash that taboo, and on the Edinburgh Fringe stage, no less, is Harriet Madeley, who has her play Outpatient. It's a moving one-woman comedy. It's just finished a huge run at the Fringe. She joins me now. How was Edinburgh?
Good morning. It was amazing, thanks. Yeah, really incredible. The show was on at 10:30 every morning, so it was quite a thing to wake up to every day.
Up and out.
But yeah, I really loved it. I haven't done it before, and not totally sure I'd do it again, to be honest, because it was so profoundly exhausting, but it was really, truly wonderful.
But now you have this play and you can take it to elsewhere. You're bringing it to us. Tell me about Outpatient.
Okay, so it's a solo comedy about death, as you were saying, and how it's something we're all going to face, but it's something we're absolutely terrible at talking about. So at the centre of the play, it's a one-woman play, is this kind of naive young journalist called Olive, who thinks she's writing this terribly serious article about death. And she's going into palliative care wards and trying to interview people about the fact they're going to die and asking lots of quite insensitive questions. It's not going very well. No one really wants to talk about death. And midway through doing the interviews, she gets diagnosed with this strange, mysterious illness that it looks like it is about to kill her. And having thought that she was this sort of deep sort of truth teller on the subject of death, turns out Olive can't deal with the prospect of her own death at all. And she reacts, let's say, very badly.
And how much of this, Harriet, is autobiographical, would you say?
It's funny you ask that. A lot of it, yeah. So it's based on something that happened to me 6 years ago. I was diagnosed with primary sclerosing cholangitis in the middle of making a play about death. And it's PSC, it's a very kind of rare disease. Information is not widespread, and let's say if you Google it, you might get some slightly misleading information. And the other weird thing about it is it has no symptoms, so most people find out they have it by accident, which is what happened to me.
So how did you find out that you had it?
I had a terrible stomach ache, and they noticed when I was in hospital for that my liver levels were slightly off. So they just did some more investigations and said, oh, by the way, you have this. And they told me about it in a way that suggested it wasn't a big deal and it wasn't going to affect me at all. But I then went on Google, and they also said I'd probably had it for about 10 years. And then when I went on Google, it said the average life expectancy from diagnosis is 9 years.
Oh.
So that's when I really started to go off the rails.
See, oh my word. So you're Googling it, you're thinking, I've not got much time left. Is that still the case then? Is there anything you can do, or you just live with it? And because I've never heard of it before.
No, and I mean, as I said, that statistic is pretty misleading. I think it's because most people who a lot of people who get diagnosed are at quite a late stage of it. It is still the case in the sense that I have the disease, and at any moment the disease could become quite dangerous. But what I've sort of come to realise is that the disease is very highly variable. So it could become very dangerous kind of next year, or it could become dangerous in 50 years. So I've just got to live with that uncertainty. And I guess that's kind of what the play is about. It's sort of made me face the reality that I'm going to die at some point and I don't know when. But in a way, that's sort of the situation to a greater or lesser extent that we're all in. You know, we all have limited time and we never know when the end will come. And sort of facing that situation led me down quite an interesting path, which I guess is why I wrote a play about it.
And then how do you find the funny in that? Was that difficult, or were there silly situations that you found yourself in?
It's a really good question. And actually, when I started pitching it to people in Edinburgh, I'm not sure I was doing it quite right. I think people would just look at me with these sad eyes. I mean, yeah, it didn't feel terribly funny at the time. Obviously, death in and of itself is not funny. It's terribly sad, terribly scary. I think it struck me as a comedy because at the centre of it, there's this irony that I think this character sort of thought on some level that she would never actually die. She wanted other people to talk about it, but, she's young, she's naive, she's got that sense of invincibility. And I just had quite a lot of fun with that character, sort of pushing all of the negative aspects of my own character maybe into kind of supersized places. And I often find like dark, difficult things in life, tragedies in life, sit quite closely to comedy for me. It's where I naturally go as a writer. And I think I'm aware that, when dealing with this subject and when going to the theatre, people don't just want to sit and go kind of like, oh no, feel terribly sad. And I think the whole point of making something about this is to look more deeply at life, actually.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of joy to be found in it, and a lot of humour alongside, a lot of quite painful stuff.
There's loads more I want to ask you on this, so stick around, please, because I want to ask you more on PSC. It's called, isn't it, that you said you had, and how exposing it was when you take something like as personal as this on stage. So we shall do that next on BBC Radio Berkshire. Mid-chat with Harriet. As I say, the play is called Outpatient. It's coming to Reading. We'll find out how you can get tickets and all the details of it next. A mid-chat to Harriet Madeley, who is bringing her show Outpatient to us here in Reading. Whereabouts is it going to be on?
It's on at Reading Rep from the 15th to 19th of October next week.
And it's just been up to Edinburgh in the August. And when you take something that is as personal as that up in front of people, I presume you'll have previewed it and tweaked it and all of that, but still, it's quite exposing to do something like that.
Yeah, it is. It was really daunting, and it's completely different to anything I've done before. I quite often work with real stories, but I'd never worked with something from my own life. And it's scary before you do it, but then once you do it, and if it's received well, it means even more, I think. There's something very kind of deep and satisfying about making work from your own experience, and I'm really, really glad I did it.
And so PSC, as you said, that you suffer from, were there other people that have it turned up, or?
Yeah.
Were there?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, so we've been working with PSC Support, who are the national support charity for PSC, and they put a big kind of shout out. And so people kind of flew over to see it, and I got to meet lots of people at various different stages of the disease. I mean, it was really amazing, but also quite confronting. I mean, this play is sort of about the fact that I've been running away from the reality that I have this disease in a way. So writing about it has meant confronting it and exploring it and sort of wading into that community, which I think a few years ago I was too scared to do, but I'm really, really glad that I have now, and I've met some amazing people.
So just to be clear on it, is it something you're just predestined to get, or?
No, I mean, no one knows how you get it, which is partly why they don't know how to cure it. And
it's extraordinary.
It is, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of really great research going on, and I think the hope is that in a decade or so there's likely to be some good treatment, but at the moment there's nothing.
But for now, you live a completely normal life, symptomless.
Yeah. It's crazy. So it's more of an idea than anything else.
Isn't that madness?
Yeah.
And so when you first heard about it and you freaked out, what sort of, how did that manifest?
So the big thing, I guess, was in my relationship with my partner. We were engaged at the time, and her reaction was to sort of try and cure the disease herself. She was like, right, we're going to Texas, we're going to go to this convention, and you need to do all these things with your diet. And, bless her, she was panicking and she was trying to help. But my reaction was to run a mile, and from all the research, I didn't even want to know about it. I didn't want to sort of be defined by it. All I knew was that, there's no cure, so there's no point really doing much. And so our reactions were completely at odds with each other, and I ended up sort of pushing her further and further away, and ultimately saying I didn't want to get married. And it was a really terrible time in our relationship. I almost don't want to give away how it ends, because then you'll see what happens in the play. But I think ultimately the play is a love story, and it's about kind of how important but difficult it is to hold people that you love close when you're going through something traumatic. But it is hard to do that, you know, if you're having different reactions.
And actually that part applies to lots of people, doesn't it? That doing that in life, the pull, sometimes the stretch on people, and is your glue strong enough to hold through the really tough times?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I would hope that obviously the play's about something very personal and quite unusual, but there's a lot of kind of universal themes in there, and I think I've found from Edinburgh that it did really speak to people, and so that's been amazing.
And as I say, it's coming to us. And then what's next? Will you take it elsewhere, or have you got another idea brewing?
Yeah, so it's going to the Lowry after Reading Rep, and it will go further next year, I would imagine. I've got a few other ideas brewing, but I've also got a 7-month-old baby, so I think I might just sort of try and spend some time with her after this.
Yeah, so Edinburgh with a 7-month-old baby is
mad. Yes, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, it sounds, I'm quite sort of staggered because it's an extraordinary thing to have, and I've never ever heard about it before. So it's really interesting that you've sort of managed to channel it into this play, and it sounds absolutely brilliant. It's called Outpatient, and it's at Reading Rep. Did you say from next week?
Yeah, we open next Tuesday on the 15th.
Best of luck with it. Thank you very much for coming in and explaining all this to me.
Thanks very much.
It's something really interesting to meet you. So, yes, it's a Harriet Madeley Outpatient if you fancy going and seeing that. I feel like I've learned something this morning for sure. Now, it's